Imagine leaving your home one evening, getting into an auto-rickshaw, and never being seen again. During the late 1980s, something terrifying was happening in Chennai. Young men were disappearing, one after another. Some never reached home. Others simply vanished without leaving a single clue. Families searched everywhere. Hospitals, police stations, friends, relatives. But every search ended the same way. Nothing. It was as if these men had disappeared into thin air. Soon, people started whispering one name. Auto Shankar. Officially, he was just another auto-rickshaw driver. But behind that ordinary face, he was building one of the most feared criminal networks in Chennai. He controlled illegal liquor. He had powerful contacts. Many believed even influential people protected him. Nobody dared speak against him, because anyone who challenged him could disappear forever. For months, police had no evidence, no witnesses, no bodies, nothing, until one determined family refused to give up. Their persistence forced investigators to reopen the case, and what they discovered would expose one of India's most infamous serial killers. The truth had been buried. Literally. How does an ordinary auto-rickshaw driver become one of India's most feared serial killers? The answer begins years before the murders. Auto Shankar was born as Gowri Shankar. Like many others, he came to Chennai hoping for a better life. At first, he worked small jobs. Nothing about him suggested he would one day become one of India's most notorious criminals. But life was about to take a dangerous turn. Driving an auto gave Shankar something more valuable than money. It gave him information. He learned every shortcut, every quiet road, every influential customer. He knew where people lived and who had power. Slowly, he began making connections with local criminals. Soon, Shankar entered the illegal liquor business. It brought him easy money. With more money came more influence. People claimed he had connections with powerful individuals. Whether out of fear or loyalty, very few people dared challenge him. His confidence grew, and so did his ambition. Anyone who threatened his business became a problem. At first, people believed rivals had simply left the area. But then, more people disappeared. Too many to be a coincidence. Families started asking questions. Police began receiving complaint after complaint. Yet the answers never came. Investigators noticed something unusual. Several missing people had one thing in common. Their last known connection pointed toward the same man, Auto Shankar. But suspicion wasn't enough. Without evidence, police couldn't arrest him. What they didn't know was that the evidence had been hidden with terrifying precision. And one small mistake would soon expose everything. One missing person can be an accident. Two might be a coincidence. But when young men kept disappearing across Chennai, people knew something far more sinister was happening. The missing men came from different neighborhoods. They had different jobs, different families, different lives. Yet every investigation seemed to hit the same dead end. No witnesses, no ransom calls, no bodies. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. As investigators questioned more people, one detail kept appearing. Several victims had last been seen near Auto Shankar or people connected to his gang. No one could prove he was responsible. But the whispers were growing louder, and fear was spreading even faster. According to investigators, Shankar rarely acted alone. He surrounded himself with trusted associates. Together, they built a network that helped protect his illegal businesses. Anyone seen as a threat, a rival, or someone who knew too much could suddenly disappear. Residents became too frightened to speak openly. Many believed that reporting him could put their own lives in danger. Despite the fear, investigators noticed a pattern. Several disappearances were linked to the same area where Shankar operated. Still, suspicion wasn't enough. Without physical evidence, there could be no arrest. The case seemed frozen, until an unexpected witness decided to talk. The witness didn't just tell police a story. He pointed them toward a specific location. If what he said was true, the answers to months of disappearances were buried beneath the ground itself. Investigators immediately organized a search. None of them were prepared for what they were about to uncover. The witness had given police one location. If he was telling the truth, This ordinary piece of land was hiding an extraordinary secret. For several minutes, nothing. Then, one officer noticed something unusual beneath the soil. The digging became more careful. Within moments, the investigation changed forever. Human remains had been discovered. The discovery confirmed every family's worst fear. The missing men had not run away. They had been murdered. As investigators continued searching, they uncovered more evidence linking the crimes to Auto Shankar and his associates. The case that had once seemed impossible to solve was finally coming together. Investigators questioned members of Shankar's gang. Under questioning, crucial details began to emerge. The disappearances were no longer isolated incidents. Police now believed they were dealing with a series of planned murders carried out over several years. The evidence continued to grow, but the man at the center of it all was nowhere to be found. By the time officers moved to arrest him, Auto Shankar had vanished. He knew the investigation was closing in. Now, instead of searching for missing victims, police were hunting one of India's most wanted criminals. His face appeared in newspapers. Police teams searched across multiple states. Every lead was followed. Every tip was investigated. The question was no longer, did Auto Shankar commit these crimes? It was, where is he hiding? After weeks of searching, police finally caught the man they believed was behind the disappearances. For many families, it felt like justice was finally within reach. But they were wrong. As investigators questioned him and his associates, more details about the murders emerged. The evidence against him continued to grow. Witness statements, physical evidence, and the recovery of human remains. The case was becoming impossible to deny. Authorities believed the most difficult part was over. They had no idea what was about to happen next. Then, the impossible happened. Despite being held in prison, Auto Shankar managed to escape. The news stunned the entire country. How could one of India's most notorious murder suspects simply walk out of custody? Questions were raised about security and whether someone had helped him from the inside. The escape triggered a massive manhunt. Police searched across cities and neighboring states. Every phone call was investigated. Every reported sighting was followed. Days passed, then weeks, but Auto Shankar remained out of sight. It seemed as though he had disappeared once again. The freedom didn't last. Investigators eventually tracked him down and arrested him again. This time, security was much tighter. There would be no second escape. Now, the focus shifted from finding Auto Shankar to proving every charge against him in court. The trial would expose shocking details about his crimes, his criminal network, and the failures that allowed him to operate for so long. For the victims' families, the wait for justice was almost over. But the final verdict would make history. 4 years, families had waited for this moment. The man they believe had destroyed so many lives would finally face justice. During the trial, prosecutors presented witness testimony, forensic evidence, and statements from people connected to Shankar's criminal network. Together, the evidence painted a disturbing picture of a man who had used fear, violence, and influence to avoid accountability for years. The defense challenged the prosecution's case, but the weight of the evidence continued to grow. After hearing the evidence, the court found Auto Shankar guilty of multiple murders and other serious crimes. He was sentenced to death. His close associates also received severe punishments for their roles in the crimes. For the families, it did not erase their loss, but it finally provided long-awaited answers. Auto Shankar appealed the judgment. Higher courts reviewed the case, but the conviction and death sentence were upheld. In 1995, his sentence was carried out. The man who had terrorized parts of Chennai was gone, but the impact of his crimes remained. The Auto Shankar case became one of India's most infamous criminal investigations. It exposed weaknesses in law enforcement, the dangers of organized crime, and the devastating consequences of corruption. It also reminded investigators of the importance of listening to families who refused to stop searching for their loved ones. Without their determination, the truth might never have been uncovered. Auto Shankar's name became synonymous with fear. But this story isn't about glorifying a killer. It's about the innocent lives that were lost and the families who never stopped demanding justice. If you enjoyed this true crime documentary, Subscribe for more real cases from around the world. Because sometimes the most terrifying stories are the ones that actually happened.